Okay, recording in progress.
Ready?
Ready.
So, this is
Ramaji's new book, You Are Everything.
yeah. This is not new.
Oh, it's not new?
Yeah. You are the infinite self. The infinite self is everything. You are everything. You are the infinite self. The self, the pure, unbounded feeling of being, is always free, free of thought and prior to thought. To be always free of thought, even when thoughts come and go, is to be always free. Always free. The universal I feeling, the I feeling in its natural state realizes that it is the supreme self of all. It realizes that it has no limits.
An interesting statement when he says it realizes. One could ask the question of who is realizing.
Right, right. I was just going over that sentence.
Right. And he does, my feeling is Ramaji does that a lot, that he talks about the infiniteness of things, but he gives them, but the language that he uses gives them personality.
Yes, yes. Because, yeah, exactly.
But I remember last time I was reading him, I was feeling the same thing, that he personalizes stuff in his writing in a way that in the diamond work we don't necessarily do that. We're kind of a little bit more careful about it.
Right.
But
Who
ultimately,
realizes?
yeah. I mean, ultimately, he's just saying what he's saying. But if you're saying it realizes, then you're adding another whole dimension of consciousness there.
Right.
And you can talk about awareness that's aware of awareness, which is certainly something that spiritual folks talk about, that you can be living in awareness, and then you can be living in the place that's aware of awareness,
The witness.
the witness.
Yeah, I think most of the spiritual books that I've read, certainly Ramaji's books talk about like the witness being a key, very important first step, because if you're completely identified with your emotion and your feelings and your thoughts, then the sensations have taken over to the point where there's no sort of space there. So the first step, and that's like the basis and the essence of Vipassana, is just like the focus on the senses. What do you hear? And in meditation, sort of like focusing on whatever's happening now,
Yeah, the experience of it.
in the present moment.
Yeah, and Ramaji does have this tendency to personalize the witness and
There.
talk as if it has a consciousness.
Right. That's interesting, though, is what is the difference between the word consciousness and the word, because there's consciousness and awareness.
Mm. It is interesting.
Well, how, when you have talked about consciousness, what does that mean to you?
It's the awareness or the assumption that there is something beyond the mind's understanding, so that there's like knowing that's beyond understanding, because I think once you get into understanding, you're talking more about brain function and conceptualization once you're talking
Right.
understanding.
Right. There has to be sort of a, yeah.
I mean, everything that happens is happening through this vehicle here and that vehicle there. And we can talk about the fact that there's a larger consciousness that can connect us.
So if we are one consciousness, then, even the phrase connection is a concession to
That's
language.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Because really, if you go into the awareness of it, there is no connection because there's no things to connect,
No separation.
no separation. But it's all this whole issue of talking about and communicating this level of spirituality is always, my experience anyway, is recognizing the paradox.
Yeah.
In terms of that you're always talking in a paradox. You're always talking through this vehicle that's me, through this brain that's mine, into this brain that's yours, trying to develop some sense of understanding of stuff that's beyond the thinking and knowing. It's like if you go into the Kabbalah, the Kabbalah is always talking about the Ein Sof, the unknowable, the unfathomable, unknowable, but that's kind of, I think, where we are, so that to talk about it is to,
Yeah. Nothing I could say.
right, right. And I guess I'm realizing that as I'm talking is that, you know, that's really what the Kabbalah is talking about. That place where, Kabbalah talks about it as this mystery and it's this place we can't know. And to me, just coming from 30 years of the diamond work, it doesn't feel like it's, well, I mean, certainly it's mysterious, but it feels like we're able to talk about it if we acknowledge the fact that just the language of talking about it is shifting the level of consciousness that it is, because it has to be brought into words, language, you, me, understanding between us.
Yeah. And there's nothing I could say that could be totally accurate, but that I did adore that about, growing up with Judaism is, that you can be sort of promoted to ask questions. It's like one of
Yeah.
the only religions where, and asking questions is a form of worship. And, when reading Ramana Maharshi's work, there's a whole chapter called Worship is Self-Inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
So if God is within.
That's nice. I like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes total sense.
But I was just wondering, just you personally, as far as, the difference between, because people can talk about consciousness as one thing, as the one or the infinite, the absolute,
Mm-hmm.
or they can talk about consciousness sort of as a brain function. What are you aware of?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I was curious how you have been using it, and what the difference is between that word and awareness. And it doesn't matter, and no word could be, perfect, like a perfect representation.
I think I use consciousness in both ways. In that more personal way that I can talk about my consciousness or the conscious or somebody's consciousness or somebody's level of consciousness, meaning how awake they are, how aware they are of the larger conceptualizations or energies that surround them and the permeability of their, you know, um, form. So I can talk about a person's consciousness. And then I can talk about the concept of consciousness, which is how in touch somebody is with, how in touch somebody is with that reality.
Well, when you talk about level of consciousness, if consciousness is, the one, then there can't be a level. But you can talk about consciousness, at in that case as a level of self-realization.
Mm-hmm. And you can say how conscious is somebody, as much as do I think this is all I am, that this is me, these, this part of me is all of me, or who I am is just limited by the boundaries of of what's here. Or is there more to me than just Gene Houston used to, I can't remember Gene Houston's phrase. Jay would remember, like this, just something like this, this bag of bones, walking around in this sack of skin. Gene Houston used to have a way to talk about it. Like I can think that's who I am, or I can realize that I am this, this connected, alive, vital energy that's connected to all other energies.
Right. You can be conscious of yourself. You could have, consciousness as far as like what is your behavior, as far as the parts, what might be coming up. Why did I say and do this and that? And then you can be more conscious or aware of, the concept of realizing who you truly are.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, so it's a broad term that can be used in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, Ram Dass used to talk about, the layers, like, him being like a doctor and a professor and having sort of, academic training, and then down to, like all the different layers, astrological sign and, psychology and culture
And then people ask, what are you conscious of in this moment? So that we've been doing a lot of work on the three centers. I'm just going to turn on another light. It's very dark in here. We've been doing a lot of work, on the three centers, the belly, the heart, and the head center. And kind of trying to work, Thomas Hubel talks about, taking a screenshot all the time, taking a screenshot of many times a day of just what's here, what's in my belly center, what's in my heart center, what's in my head center, and what's it like to align those three centers. So we talk about that. We talk about, what are you conscious of? What are you conscious of in your belly? What are you conscious in your heart?
so going back to sort of the three phases is something that Ramaji talks about in his books, where the first phase, the Vipassana phase, where you're, just developing that initial witness, that initial space, so that you can focus on the senses, what's happening now, what are the sounds, is there, a bird outside.
Mm-hmm.
Quiet.
Mm-hmm. Plain. You have something ticking.
And then sort of what's happening, are there any thoughts? Are there any feelings, like are there any sensations, a sensation in the body?
Mhm.
Tingling.
Mhm. Pain. Pain.
And then, the collapsing of the witness would be the third stage, because, I mean, I don't want to, this is, an idea coming from this book in Ramaji. So I don't want to act like this is, this is something
Right,
that was
it's just,
my
yeah,
idea. And of
no,
course, all of his books are, based on, Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi's teaching. So, but just the idea as like, we are the perfect witness. So there's no need for like another witness.
Mhm. Want me to tell you what Hamid talks about, the three stages?
Sure.
So his three journeys are the journeys to presence, which is just comes from kind of what you're saying, kind of like the beginning waking up, like, oh, I am not just this, I am more than this, so those little moments of awakening that lead to um more awareness and an increase in consciousness of who one is. So then the second stage is in presence, so that one actually goes into being able to access presence, or in IFS self, so be in presence, to be functioning from that higher state, like we talk about in
Self
presence,
energy.
self energy. And then the third step is like the absolute. It's as presence, so that it widens out to the fact that there's nothing else but that consciousness.
Yeah.
I like those. I drew those at one point. I don't
That's
know.
the mushy gushy.
That's the mushy gushy. Yeah. Someplace I painted those, but God knows where they are. That was before the fire in my room. Someplace I have those three paintings.
And when that state is realized and embodied, it can be impossible to have a problem.
You have to kind of contract yourself down to something to have a problem. Stuff yourself down.
Right, as far as like whatever you're doing has to be okay, right?
Mhm.
If you're me and I'm you, then
Well, even if I get frustrated with you, it's okay in some universe. In some larger universe, or some larger, if you go wide enough and large enough, then whatever is happening has like a plan, a purpose, a reality.
well, there's the relative, which is, like people bump into each other, physical forms. And there's energy. And then all the conditioning of like, ow, you stepped on me.
Mhm. Right. Your form ran into my form. Sometimes it feels lovely when your form runs into my form.
Yeah, sometimes it feels
Just yummy. Sometimes it feels,
like love.
Mm.